Hello and welcome to today's webinar on the interplay between product safety and sustainability. As you join in, let me remind all participants that this webinar is part of the work program of UNCTAD's informal working group on consumer product safety, and it's also open to interested stakeholders and partners and participants of the One Planet Network Consumer Information for Sustainable Consumption and Production program. The United Nations guidelines for consumer protection recognize consumers' right to access to non-hazardous products and also the right from consumers to promote just, equitable, and sustainable economic and social development and environmental protection. In today's globalized and digitalized marketplace, ensuring consumer product safety is an increasingly complex challenge. The rapid rise of cross-border e-commerce, the expansion of informal markets, and the shift towards sustainable consumption have created new layers of risk and regulatory difficulty. The latest UNCTAD report, entitled Emerging Trends and Challenges in Consumer Product Safety, illustrates how countries across the regions are grappling with these new dynamics. In parallel, the promotion of sustainable consumption has emerged as both a challenge and an opportunity. Unsafe consumer products not only threaten human health, but frequently contribute to environmental degradation. The intersection of safety and sustainability is increasingly recognized as essential to achieve equitable and green consumer markets. UNCTAD, as the UN system's focal point on consumer protection, is at the forefront of this global effort. Through its recommendations, working groups, and technical assistance programs, UNCTAD helps countries, particularly developing countries, to strengthen their legal frameworks, build institutional capacities, and foster international cooperation in consumer protection. Today's webinar aims to foster dialogue and share best practices among policymakers, enforcers, and businesses to advance sustainability and consumer product safety. It seeks to leverage the United Nations Guidelines for Consumer Protections and other international instruments as a framework to address and advance the importance of creating safe, sustainable products. We will explore then the intersection between product safety and environmental sustainability, highlighting how unsafe products can harm both consumers and the planet. We will promote sustainable consumption and production by identifying regulatory strategies that ensure that consumer products are safe, compliant, and environmentally responsible. We will discuss the emerging threats to consumer protection in digital and informal markets, including the sale of counterfeit and non-compliant goods. We will highlight innovative policy and legal frameworks that integrate sustainability into consumer product safety regimes, particularly in developed and transitioning economies, and we will strengthen international cooperation and knowledge exchange with a focus on building regulatory capacity and harmonizing standards that advance both safety and sustainability. My name is Arnau Izaguirre, and I'm a legal officer at the Competition and Consumer Policies branch of UN Trade and Development, and I am here with a wonderful panel of speakers. Jisoo Yan, she is an international specialist at the Korea Consumer Agency of the Republic of Korea, and Marie Girardi is a legal and policy officer at the Directorate General for Justice and Consumers of the European Commission. This is a very informal webinar, so you will all be encouraged to share your views and to interact with our speakers simply by raising your hand or even writing in the chat function. We will start with a presentation from both our speakers, and we will then have an interaction with all of you. So without further ado, I would like to move to my first speaker, Jisoo Yan, International Specialist at the Korea Consumer Agency. Jisoo, tell us, in what type of market has the KCA, the Korean Consumer Agency, seen the interaction between product safety and sustainability? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Arnau, for a wonderful introduction. And thank you for organizing this wonderful webinar. So Korea consumers are increasingly interested in sustainable consumption as climate change has become a global issue. In response, the KCA has conducted research on various safety and sustainability topics including mobile car sharing services, fire safety in electric vehicle parking lots, greenwashing in biodegradable plastic products, and safety in e-scooter and e-bike sharing services. Especially, I'd like to focus on the KCA's experience with the product safety pledge for secondhand online marketplaces platforms today. Next slide, please. The Korea Consumer Agency is a government organization dedicated to protecting consumer rights and consumer safety in Korea. With a focus on consumer safety, the agency works to ensure the safety of products in the market. Next, please. Korean consumers are increasingly focused on sustainable consumption and are actively participating in efforts to encounter climate change. Additionally, they are savvy enough to make economical choices, opting for second-hand products instead of purchasing expensive new ones. As an IT powerhouse, South Korea has witnessed rapid growth in online second-hand market platforms due to the convergence of digital acceleration, changes in the market environment, and the increasing demand for sustainable consumption trends. Next, please. According to the Korea Internet and Security Agency, Korean domestic second-hand market size has grown from $3 million in 2008 to $17 million in 2021. It's projected to rise sharply to $30 million by 2025. The KCA found that almost 5,500 unsafe products sold in secondhand OMPs in 2022, such as cosmetics, alternative medicines, medical devices like aspirator. Next, please. Therefore, the KCA introduced and concluded the product safety pledge for secondhand product online marketplaces in June 2023. The four major Korean secondhand OMPs, along with the KCA and the Korean Fair Trade Commission, joined the pledge to ensure product safety in line with sustainable consumption trends. The pledge is based on 4 pillars: to create a frameworks and to develop a system and to protect consumers and to monitor unsafe products in the market. Next, please. So as a result of the pledge, the KCA informed the signatories about unsafe products information, and then the OMPs identify and remove the listings of unsafe products postings from their platforms. The KCA asked the signatories, and signatories removed almost 1,800 unsafe products listings from their platforms, according to the pledges in 2023. However, in 2024, this number increased to almost 9,800 unsafe products removed under the pledge, included second-hand e-scooters and electric ovens. The KCA and the signatories have analyzed that the rapid increase in unsafe products is primarily due to the large number of second-hand dietary supplement listings that do not meet safety requirements. In addition, the second-hand online transaction of medication is very problematic in Korea, particularly as prescription weight loss drugs such as Wegovy and Saxenda have been found on the online second-hand marketplaces. As a result, the KSA and the online secondhand online marketplaces have cooperated to swiftly remove those listings of such weight loss medications in accordance with the pledge. Next, please. In addition, the KSA developed and distributed the guidelines for product restriction on online sales to those signatories, the secondhand OMPs, to clarify interpretation and implementation of the pledge and strengthen cooperation between the KSA and the signatories. The KSA and the signatories maintain continuous communication through conferences and bilateral meetings to discuss better ways to protect consumers from unsafe products in the second-hand online market. Next, please. Now, I'd like to discuss some challenges and areas that need some improvement. There are difficulties in identifying the large volume of unsafe products on the platforms due to limited monitoring personnel from the KSA side and also from the signatory side. Therefore, it is necessary to build a system that allows second-hand OMPs to monitor unsafe products on their own using the latest technologies such as AI monitoring system. And secondly, due to the nature of second-hand product transaction, where detailed product information such as brand name, product name, and model numbers are often not entered on the online platforms because those sellers are just ordinary consumers, not professional sellers. It is necessary to consider imposing a requirement for entering essential information on the secondhand market platforms. Therefore, the KSA just built a self-regulation system portal for businesses to ensure product safety by empowering them to minimize risks associated with unsafe products in 2024. The portal provides business with information on unsafe products, such as records and regulation updates, enabling them to take proactive measures for consumer safety. The KSA is expecting those secondhand online market platforms to actively participate in the portal system. So now I'd like to conclude my presentation now. I hope it has been helpful. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jisoo, for introducing us to the experience of KCA, which is quite vast already and exciting as well. I see that we have some requests for questions, but I'm going to ask participants to hold on with me until we've heard from our second speaker, and this is Marie Gerardi. Marie is a legal and policy officer at the Director General for Justice and Consumers at the European Commission. And I believe you will present some preliminary results of the DG study in support of the implementation of the General Product Safety Regulation. Marie, tell us, what can we find in this report? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Arnaud. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are, of course. It's really a pleasure to be here today with you at this UNCTAD event, and many thanks, Arnaud and colleagues, for the invitation and for the great organization, as always. So indeed, I work in DG Justice and Consumers, and more specifically in the product safety units. And today I would like to share some insights with you from a recent EU Commission mandated study on a critical but complex topic, which is ensuring consumer product safety in the circular economy. So As we accelerate the transition to circular models, several questions may arise regarding the relationship between product safety for the safety of circular products. So products have to be safe during their entire lifespan, and circular models increase that lifespan, which is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. So we must look at how product safety plays a role in this. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the study that we would like to present today was launched to support the implementation of the new General Product Safety Regulation, and it explores basically the synergies, but sometimes also obstacles between circularity and product safety. So it's not yet published, this study, it will soon be. But it's also quite lengthy and full of information. So the idea today is really to give you the gist of it. And then, of course, if you are interested, you can go and have a deeper look once the study is published. But in a nutshell, the study has 3 core objectives. The first one is to assess and look at the potential safety risks of product in the circular economy. So this is what we mean with circular products. Then the second goal is to understand consumer perception of the safety of circular products and how this may affect their engagement with circular products. And then finally, to analyze the legal and standardization landscape and where and how they support or sometimes fall short of ensuring the safety of circular products. So can we please move to the next slide? Yes. So a bit more about the research methodology. It's a mix of desk research with literature review and primary data collection. So we have an extensive data collection there, which gives us a lot of information. For example, we have various stakeholders interviews. We have an extensive consumer survey. We have a behavioral experience, and we also have a mystery shopping. Which all of this ends in the formulation of some preliminary recommendation for different stakeholders in how to ensure the safety of circular products. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yes, so we had to pick certain consumer products for the sake of the study. And after looking at the safety gates data, we selected the following 6 products categories that you can see on the slide. So we are dealing with sports equipment, vehicles, toys, textiles, childcare equipment, and electronics appliances. I said it already, but the study really departs from the General Product Safety Regulation, which is a brand new piece of EU law. The study covers 10 EU member states to ensure a wide and balanced geographical scope. And it explores the, let's say, most mainstream circular approaches, or what we sometimes call circular business models, so secondhand, repair, refurbishment, and remanufacturing. And importantly, it follows the scope of the General Product Safety Regulation, which is applicable in the B2C relationship. So we do sometimes reach conclusion also for C2C markets, but the core of the study is linked to B2C. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, thank you. So here on the slide, you can indeed see the main circular approaches that we focus on, of course, within these broader type of these broader models exist an infinite number of more specific business models. But if this is of interest to you, we use the definition for these business models that we can find in EU legislation. I think we can go to the next slide. Now, the most important bit is what we have found in this study. So I will try to give you the key insights, but of course, again, you will be able to find much more detail in the study itself once published. But you can see on the slide a list of the most, let's say, recurring safety issues encountered by circular products. So first, there are what we call general stress factors, usually linked to consumer usage. So we have the wear and tear, the fading labels, or the failure to follow instructions of use. Then you have the circularity-related issues, such as missing product history, missing parts, or hidden defects. And then, perhaps even more interestingly, we have the consumer perception and the fact that the safety issues vary depending on the business model at stake, as well as the role of safety requirements, which might be sometimes outdated. And I will dig a bit further into these three issues in the next slides. So it seems that it seems that the safety risks vary per business model. So it seems indeed that products re-entering the markets do not pose all the same potential safety risks. So you can see a sort of spectrum on the slides, with second-hand products carrying the highest risk due to a lack of checks and missing sometimes product history. Then we find repaired and refurbished products. They can also show certain risk due to the variable skills of the person undertaking the repair or the refurbishment and the parts compatibility. And then remanufactured products, when done properly, tend to be the safest due to the structured processes in place, and usually the need to abide by the newest standards and regulation, just as a new product would have to do. Next slide, please. Then we also find that consumer behavior matters. So consumers are, we found in our extensive survey, they are concerned about product safety when engaging in circular economy, and this impacts their willingness to purchase circular goods. We also find that trust from consumers is much higher in given circumstances. For example, products which are refurbished or remanufactured by the original manufacturer tend to do better with consumer trust than if they were repaired or remanufactured by a third party. Then we also find that products sold via a business to consumers relationship rather than a consumer to consumer relationship do better with a consumer. So they trust more when it's a business selling to them than when it's another consumer. And we believe this has to do with the fact that consumers know that businesses have to abide by several legal requirements. So that might be an explanation for that. And then finally, we also see that consumers trust goods that are circular goods that are bought in a physical store more than in an online web shop. So this is also an interesting link with Jisoo's presentation. And I was wondering, also for the discussion later today, how this is in your respective countries. If you see some similar trends, it will be very, very interesting for us to know. But in the meanwhile, if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. We also found through our behavioral experience that the more safety information is provided with a circular product, the more willing consumers will be to buy that product. So in this regard, there are several challenges. For instance, the faded or missing labels or documentation accompanying circular products. We also see sometimes the lack of guidance from original manufacturer on products' life cycles beyond the first use of the product. And something that complicates sometimes things even further is the fact that there are, at least I'm speaking again from the EU perspective, no differentiation, for instance, on the EU safety gate for incident tracking between new and circular products. So it's sometimes difficult to see whether a given incident is linked to the fact that the product has a second life or whether the issue was already there in the initial product. We can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so in the EU, the legislation requires that products are safe through their entire lifespan. So this is what we call the general safety requirements. And in that sense, the GPSR, so the legislation that was adopted very recently, is future-proof and wide in scope. So it applies to all products, whether new, used, reconditioned, repaired, and so on and so forth. Manufacturers have the prime responsibility in ensuring that products that they place on the market are safe, and they need to perform an internal risk analysis to that effect. Now, there are several challenges that arise for circular products in that regard. Because, for instance, if a product is substantially modified, then it triggers different legal responsibilities than when a product is simply, so to speak, resold. So this will have to be, of course, assessed on a case-by-case basis. And for that to happen, it's important that the legal definitions are clear and understood by the different stakeholders. So there are also some exemptions in EU law from these general safety requirements for antiques and for products which are clearly marked as to be reconditioned, repaired, and so on and so forth. So here again, I leave the slide for you, and in the study we go in much more depth about the whole legal framework in the EU, because of course there are other pieces of legislation that have a role to play with safety. But I would be curious to see how it works in your countries for secondhand goods, for example. So I know I'm not supposed to be the one asking so many questions, but it would be very interesting to have an engagement on that later on. And then if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. Standardization also plays a very important role for compliance with product safety legislation, and especially in the risk assessment of a product in the EU. However, in the study, we find that most technical standards are designed for new products. So they often do not reflect on the circular specific risk, for instance. The testing methodology containing standards do not usually account for aging or for component degradation, and also for the non-original parts compatibility with the initial parts of the product. So this definitely shows some limitation as well. And then if we can go to the last slide, please. Yeah, so based on all of this, the study proposes 4 strategic preliminary recommendations. So the first one is to raise awareness and build capacity, and it's to support all actors, all stakeholders, so consumers, businesses, and authorities with better information and tools for product safety in the circular economy. Then it's also important to clarify legal responsibility in the circular economy, so to harmonize interpretation and to ensure that circular actors understand their safety obligations. And then another important point is really to upgrade standardization and to ensure that standards are adequate and tailored to circular realities, particularly for all of the circular business models that we have discussed today. And then we believe it's also important to invest in continuous monitoring. So, for example, to improve the data collection, especially on incidents which involve circular goods, or circular risk, I should say better, attached to goods in the circular economy. And to also support market surveillance, because we've heard many times in the study that market surveillance face quite some difficulties and challenges sometimes when it comes to monitoring the safety of consumer goods in the circular economy. I think I have one more slide just to thank you very much for your attention. And to mention that the shift, but it was also said by Arnaud earlier, the shift to circularity is very essential for sustainability, and it's very crucial to build a strong foundation of trust and safety, and that these two things go hand in hand. And yes, thank you very much for your attention, and I would be very happy to hear more about how things are done in your respective countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marie, and thank you, Jisuk, as well, for setting the discussion today in this meeting of worlds between product safety and environmental protection. You both touched on the issue of trust as a cornerstone of the well-functioning of the economy in general, but particularly of the circular economy to ensure sustainability. But he also talked about legal clarity. The report mentions this very clearly, and so did Jisuk with the enumeration of the obligations that pledges entail. And there is something that is perhaps important, at least I think, to mention, and that is that for product safety to operate, or even for sustainable protection to be mainstream into product safety, there needs to be a legal framework that supports it and that establishes clear obligations for market players, namely businesses who place products in the markets. According to UNCTAD estimations, only 40% of UNCTAD member states, and that is 195, do have product safety frameworks in place, which is perhaps the first step towards this. And I'm also interested in learning other participants' experience of how to play the legal framework on product safety in pursuit of sustainability objectives. I hope that we will get quite a lot of interaction in with participants. Please don't hesitate to raise your hand, and then I will give you the floor to unmute yourself. I believe that is possible. If we Can we raise our hand? I think we can react, but I'm not sure if we can raise. Oh, yes, we can, because I see Francois. Francois Vela, please introduce yourself and you can ask the question. Thank you. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you hear me well.
We can, yes.
Thank you. I work for the long time label, which we created in France, in south of France. Our job is to promote the product that lasts in time, so repairable and reliable. And I would like to share two, I think, important elements related to this because we see concrete things. We work closely with manufacturers in France and in Europe and in the world. And usually we have, I think we have an argument, we have a position from manufacturers saying we won't give information about repairing because it's not safe for people to do it themselves. And of course, for some specific products, it's an interesting way to argue it, to see the thing, but it must not be a reason for manufacturer to withhold information. That's why I agree, of course, with you. We need specific regulation to specify what could be done and what could be given in terms of documentation, repairing manual to be safe, and when you do it yourself, because it's a very big way to promote repairing. It's not expensive when you can buy a part and you can do yourself the repairing. But in some way, we usually, in many times, have manufacturers saying to us, we don't give it because it's not safe. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true at all, and it should be clarified. And just the second thing is we have there is a subject about 3D printing parts because usually they are not in a mechanical way in the resistance to stress, to thermal stress. They are not the same characteristic than the initial one. So, and it's more and more promoted, the 3D printing part. So I think we have a subject here in terms of safety too, how we regulate it, because it will come more and more on the market in terms of availability of parts in time. So I think it's two big subjects. Yes, happy to share with you. We have a text in AGEC law because we are part in repairability index working group in France. I don't know if you heard about it, so we are part of it and we discussed about it. And law is evolving in France, and happy to share it with you at maybe more European level to see what's possible to do. Thank you. I hope it's clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francois. And feel free to include links in the chat. I
Yep.
think we'll all be interested in learning more about this experience. I see from the chat that Amin Akbar wanted to take the floor. I wonder, Amin, if you still want to intervene at present. You can unmute yourself and take the floor if you would like.
Hello, thank you, Arnav. May I please?
Please go ahead.
Okay, this is Amin from Competition Commission of Pakistan, and we actually work for ensuring fair competition within the market. I have two questions, one from Jisuk and one from Mary. So first, I will go with Jisuk, and I want to know that how Korea ensure product safety and sustainability in an ESG framework, like environmental, social, and governance framework. Considering these type of element, how you ensure product safety and sustainability. And from Mary, I want to ask that please correct me if I am wrong. A circular economy is basically an economic model which basically focus on minimizing the waste and maximizing the resource efficiency. So how EU ensure product safety and sustainability for those products which are not categorized as circular products? I think my questions are clear.
Thank you so much. I mean, they are very specific, and I wonder whether Jisoo would like to take the first question on product safety sustainability in environmental social governance framework. Jisoo, would you have any idea of how this could play out?
Um, uh, yes, definitely. So product safety within the context of sustainability is inherently cross-sectoral, making cooperation and communication among relevant authorities essential to address safety and sustainability issues simultaneously. So, ESG, environmental, um, um, governance and socially responsible. So all ministries of Korea, like for example, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Drug and food safety are all combined, and we need to cooperate very closely. So the KSA has actively collaborated with relevant ministries and agencies and institutions which it's responsible for their respective areas. For example, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Food and Drugs Safety, because all those ministries are responsible for each jurisdictions. So we really closely work together, and then we inform business and consumers consumers through bilateral meetings and conferences, and with public campaigns and through YouTubes and social medias and so on. So it's all about communications and cooperations. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Jisoo, for explaining how interinstitutional plays out. I think also ESG also refers to businesses, and I haven't come across examples of businesses including that or reporting that in ESG frameworks themselves. I'd be interested if any country has that experience, not necessarily, of course, only Korea, but any country that would have experience in their businesses reporting product safety pledges or sustainability efforts in product safety also included in this. I'd like to move to Marie. Maybe, Marie, would you have an answer to Amin's question?
Yes, thank you so much for your question, sir. I mean, it was very interesting because you ask it, if I understand correctly, from the other way around. So you ask how do we regulate non-circular products? Well, basically, under the general product safety regulation, we try to not make any distinction. So we regulate both circular and non-circular products, and we require that all of these products are safe. So whether new, used, or repaired, all of these business models are covered by the legislation. Now, of course, in practice, and this is what we try to also assess further in the study, it might raise differences, for example, in the risk assessment and the use of standards, because standards are not always adequate for new products as they are for circular products. And when it comes to the definition of circular products, we basically focus on the four, let's say, most mainstream ones. So the reuse, simply, so the second hand, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and repair. But of course, within these four, there are an infinite number of specific business models. But again, the idea is that all of them are covered by our legislation the same way as new products.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amin. Thank you for your question. Thank you, Jisoo and Marie. I don't know if there's any other requests for the floor at present. If you would like to just raise your hands, share your experience and how you ensure product safety and sustainability in your jurisdiction. While you're thinking about that, I have one question for Marie. And I've seen that you have identified some sectors as priority for the report. So sports equipment, vehicles, toys and games, clothing and textile, children and equipment, electronic and home appliance. And I wonder, how did you get to that list? What brought you to focus on these sectors and these products?
Thanks a lot, Arnaud, for your question. It reminded me that I forgot to say something important during the presentation about these products. So I will come in a minute to your question, but I also forgot, in where I discussed the consumer perception, we have seen that in our survey. So we surveyed thousands of consumers all over the EU. And we saw that a lot of consumers actually have some perceptions of certain products being more dangerous than others when being bought as circular goods. So, for example, they're much more cautious with secondhand cars and secondhand childcare equipment because they intrinsically view these products as problematic. Whereas for other types of products like textiles, they go with their eyes closed. And we also see that these consumers' perception do not necessarily match the data that we have. And this comes to your question, and that's why it reminded me of this important fact. We focused on the GPSR, so we focused on consumer products mostly. And basically to select these 6 categories, we looked at the usage, so statistics, and mostly at the safety gate. So we used at cases notified on our EU safety gates. This simply as simple as that.
Thank you so much, Mai. This is very interesting to learn what was the way to get to this list. And I see that we have a question from Mehmouna from CCP. And the question is, are there any significant legal apps in international product safety regulations when it comes to cross-border movement of used or refurbished goods? I'm not really sure I understand the question, so perhaps, Mehmouna, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the questions or redraft the question? Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello.
Hello, Mehmouna. Please go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my question is there any significant legal gaps in international product safety regulations when it comes to cross-border movement of goods when they export second-hand goods to other countries? How they ensure product safety then?
Thank you, Mehmouna. May I ask you, you're from CCP. What country are you from?
I'm from Pakistan, Competition Commission of Pakistan.
Excellent. Thank you, Mehmouna. And if I may jump in on this, there are a lot of gaps on the cross-border distribution of unsafe products. And actually at UNCTAD, we have a 2020 recommendation precisely on this issue that calls for greater information exchange. And it also calls for greater cooperation in monitoring and enforcing consumer product safety laws. I will share with you the text of the recommendation and also a modalities paper where we see the different options that there are. Currently, there is very little possibilities, with perhaps the exception of the United States, which has significant powers to oversee the re-export or export directly of products that are considered to be unsafe in the American market, and they are able to inform foreign authorities about this because their legal framework allows. But this is not the case in many other countries that have less say in exports to third countries. So the easy way forward is improve communication exchange, and there are various networks of rapid alerts, and the global network that exists currently is the OECD Global Recalls Portal that gathers information not only from OECD member states, but also from other regions, such as the Organization of American States Health and Safety Network. And it, I believe, is also advancing in collecting information from ASEAN member states. I don't know if speakers would like to, please, Jisoo, go ahead. Over to you.
If I may, actually, this is not really big global thing, but South Korean government, Korean Fair Trade Fair Trade Commission actually concluded safety pledge with product safety pledge with Temu and AliExpress in May 2024, because there are so many not used or refurbished, but there have been so many international parcel transactions to Korea from China. So there have been really strong need to protect Korean consumers from such international cross-border parcel transaction. Therefore, Korean government concluded product safety pledge with Temu and AliExpress. So this is not very strong legally binding document, but still it has very friendly words saying that it AliExpress and Temu do efforts to protect Korean consumers from unsafe products and remove listings of unsafe products from their platforms, something like that. So this is also some efforts that governments can take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jisoo, for giving us a concrete example of how that informal cooperation can take place. I shared with you also the link to the recommendation I was mentioning, and I see that we have two hands raised. I think Francois may be an old hand, but I see Darcy Altavilla from ACCC Australia has the hand up. Please, Darcy, it's over to you.
Thank you, Arnaud. Everyone, I'm Darcy. I'm from the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. I specifically work in the Consumer Product Safety Division in the policy space. And I'm also a member of the ACCC Sustainability Task Force. So this webinar hits right on the head on those two topics. I've got two questions, both for Marie. Firstly, at the ACCC, we use similar terms, reuse and remade, but we don't use the term remanufactured. So I was hoping you could maybe explain a little bit more about the term remanufactured, maybe with an example of a remanufactured good that you've seen on the market currently. And my second quick question is a lot more simple. When can we expect to be able to access the full report on circular economy and product safety? Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Marie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Darcy. I'm just reopening the document to give you the exact definition. Give me a second so that I'm fully precise, because we take this one from our ESPR regulation. This is where it is defined, and I would rather just read it out. And maybe in the meanwhile, regarding the dates, it should be quite soon. I can't give you a precise date, but it should be probably around June that it will be available. So remanufacturing, it's defined in the following terms in the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. So this is our ESPR. So it's basically an action through which a new product is produced from objects that are waste, products or components, and through which at least one change is made that substantially affects the safety or the performance of the product. So it really entails disassembling a product and restoring or replacing its component and testing both individual parts and the entire product to ensure that it fits the safety requirements, which is also why, regarding the safety issues, we found that basically these products, looking at the legal definitions, because in the GPSR we don't have the definition of remanufacturing, but we have a definition of substantial modification, and this would fit the definition of substantial modification, and these products would be basically considered as a new product, triggering the responsibility of an original manufacturer, so with the same risk assessment, the same obligations, and so on and so forth. Is it the same in Australia?
I would say at the ACCC, we're still sort of wrapping our heads around the different terminology and sharing thoughts about which terminology we'd like to move forward with. We've been using the term remade, which I think is essentially the same as what you're saying as remanufactured. But we have been considering whether, because none of these terms feature in the Australian consumer law, it's sort of, we have a bit more flexibility in which terms we decide to use moving forward. And so we've been having discussion about trying to find one term that might cover off all goods, not including secondhand goods. So secondhand goods would be treated separately, and then trying to find one term that would cover all, reused and repaired and refurbished and remanufactured in your case. And I was thinking that perhaps remanufactured might be that term for us, but I can see it's quite similar to remade, so we might leave our hands off that. Thank you. Really helpful.
Thank you, Darcy. I think Raymond Johnson had his physical hand up. Is that the case, sir? Would you like to intervene? But you will have to unmute yourself first. You're still muted, sir. I don't know if I can unmute Raymond.
Hello?
Now we can hear you.
Right. So my question is, if you're engaged in cross-border trade, which is international trade, for example, and the specifications of a product, is there a body that you can refer to as you have SGS inspection, safety inspection? Is there some form of reference that you can make that this product is safe to use? Would it be appropriate to use one of these, one of your methods to say that the product is safe for export and use?
Thank you, Raymond. Where are you dialing in from?
I'm from Ireland.
Ireland. Okay. Are you in the Competition Commission?
No, I am the CEO, Principal Consultant of the Institute of International Trade.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I believe you are asking whether the certification for importing products for product safety compliance, is this the
Yes,
question?
what will be the methodology or the strategy for referencing? Because we have the inspection bodies, certifying that the products are not only what they are, but they are safe. But is there some way of referencing your bodies as to the reliability or the safety or sustainability of the product?
Right. Maybe, Marie, would you like to answer that question about certification
Yes, I can.
as Ireland is fully in line with EU regulations?
Yes, I can give it a shot. And sir, I would say that as a lot of lawyer would say, it depends. So it depends on the products category at stake, because in the EU, we don't require certification for everything. We require the CE marking for what we call harmonized products. So these are products for which a piece of legislation exists and deals with them entirely, like toys, for example. Toys need to be CE marked and CE certified. For the GPSR products, we don't have the CE marking, but economic operators have to perform an internal risk analysis, and it doesn't matter if the product was manufactured in or outside of the EU. As soon as it is placed on the EU market, it must be safe, and all of the GPSR obligation are triggered. Now, the risk assessment really you have to show basically the characteristics of your product, and manufacturers have to show the potential risks that their products might raise, and the mitigating measures that would put in place to ensure that the products is still safe. And this is where technical standards play a big role, because technical standards are used to demonstrate compliance with the safety requirements that can be found in the law. So we have European technical standards that are used and cited in the official journal for each legislation, and that you can find easily on the website of the Commission. I don't know if this is helpful. Please let me know if...
Thank you,
Oh,
Marie.
it is.
Thank you so much. And I also had a question from Tolga Erkan, who's writing from Turkey and is the Chief of Sustainability Office at a technical university. The question is, what is the assessment of the proposed solutions to address the major threats of product safety and sustainability in Mediterranean countries, particularly during the high peak summer tourism season, such as overburdened supply chain, temperature-related degradation, surges in plastic waste, unregulated local markets, water resource depletion, and increased strain on inspection and regulatory systems? I think the question is quite broad, even if it is specific. I don't know if we have much experience in particularly Mediterranean countries, but also I know, Tolga, that you deal with sustainability in a broad sense and product safety in a broad sense. There are issues such as climate degradation that go beyond really product safety regulations. And here, the focus is always of a consumption relationship and a product that is placed in the market so that it falls into the scope of product safety regulations. I don't know if there's any general answer to Tolga's question. It's quite a tough one to answer. But I don't know if Marie or Jisoo, you have any thoughts on this issue? I don't see any. So I'm wondering whether there are any other requests for the floor. Oh, and Jan from the OECD is confirming that the portal, the Global Recalls portal, does incorporate safety warnings and recalls from ASEAN product alerts, the EU product safety gate, and the Inter-American rapid alert system. So happy that I did not say nonsense. And Jan is putting our colleagues' email address from the OECD to reach out if there is more information. We are at the end of our webinar. I'd like to ask Marie and Jisoo, what would be the final takeaways that you would like our participants to take home after the meeting today? Jisoo, you have 2 minutes. Tell us.
Climate change is a global issue that requires a collective response. According to the 2024 OECD Consumer Declaration, consumer spending accounts for 60% of GDP, positioning consumers at the heart of global economy. Therefore, sustainable consumption is essential in the fight against climate change. It is responsibility of authorities to support business and consumers to make informed greener choices, something that can only be achieved through guaranteed product safety. I hope Korea's experience can offer valuable insights for your agency as well.
Thank you so much, Jisoo. Marie, over to you. What would be the takeaway for our participants today?
Thank you so much, Anna. I see that there are still 2 hands raised, so I'm happy to only speak for 30 seconds to a minute to give them the chance to still make the comment that they want to say, because I see that their hands have been raised for a while. But on my end, I would just say that we're very hopeful and that we really believe that sustainability and product safety go hand in hand and basically strengthen, sorry, it's not an easy one to say, each other, and that it's important to build strong foundation for trust and safety. And again, as I was mentioning, products have to be safe for their entire lifespan, which is basically at the core of circularity and sustainability. And we believe that enforcing and enhancing product safety as much as possible will enhance consumer trust and engagement in the circular economy.
Thank you so much, Marie. And I know that we have more questions and more hands raised, but unfortunately our time is up. I would just like to remind you that this webinar was organized in the context of the UNCTAD informal work on consumer product safety. And I'm going to leave you some references of the United Nations Guidelines for Consumer Protection, and also to invite all of you to the upcoming 9th United Nations Conference on Competition and Consumer Protection that will take place in Geneva between the 7th and the 11th July 2025. We will host a session about protecting and empowering consumers in the circular economy, and this will take place on Thursday, 10th of July at 3 p.m. See you all there and take care. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.